Hello and welcome back everybody to the Foodbuild factory, where today we're going to take a look at the Rusty Ranger after a week-long absence from this beautiful channel, but I'm pretty sure you all survived it, right? I think you got better stuff to do than sitting around waiting for the next video of this channel here. And let's get right into it. What this character is going to be about is we are going to play as a non-stealth commando character. Um, we are heavily making use out of VATs. Didn't really turn out too well on this here turret, as always. Not quite sure why this one always seems to make a fuss when it comes to VATs, but yeah. Getting a bit more into the character, what we're going to take a look at here is we are having a Medic's Handmade rifle with the effect that VATS crits fill faster. So for those of you who have seen a few other videos on this channel here, you probably have an idea where this is going already, which is if I'm using the VATS crits filling faster legendary effect. Basically, I really like this effect for the simple reason that it is, to my opinion, one of the only ways to get a crit on every second shot if you're playing on a full health character. So probably you do know that on a low health character using unyielding armor, you can pretty easily get your luck up to 33, which would be the threshold you need in order to get a crit on every second shot using the critical savvy perk. However, if you're having the effect VATS crits filling faster, 23 luck is the magic number that you do need to achieve in order to do this. And that's relatively simple as well due to the addition of legendary perks and legendary luck on this occasion. Now, if you're really sharp and cunning, you probably have noticed that at the moment it's not the case yet. We don't do a crit on every second shot, but that's just because, oopsie, there it is. That's because whenever I did this in the past, I was just trying to get the 23 luck constantly due to a mix of legendary luck, luck being maxed out to 15, obviously, and what I did in the past was using legendary armor with the effect of +1 luck. Uh, Obviously, you can get up to 5 pieces, so yeah, you can pretty easily get a full set of armor and therefore have 23 luck all of the time. On this occasion, what I did is I was not using basically the ability to get a crit on every second shot for the most part. Whenever I feel like I need it, I just chuck some alcohol. It doesn't really matter which one, because it's due to a perk, Happy Go Lucky, that gives us +2 luck whenever we use any alcohol, any alcoholic beverage. So it's a very rarely available buff. As you probably know, I tend to not use buffs in my videos, talking about stuff like Blight Soup or so on. But whenever I do, I try to keep it to buffs that are very readily available. And I think alcohol, especially if you just need any of it and not any specific kind, is very readily available due to two facts. Firstly, it's just very common in Appalachia, you find it everywhere. And the second one is, nowadays you can just easily craft it. You don't even need to do the quests for Biff in order to unlock the recipes, because right off the bat you do always have the ability to craft the standard ones. So talk about fermentable beer, whiskey, wine, I think, rum, vodka, whatever. And most of them are very easy to obtain, just needing like razor grain and corn and boiled water. So you can easily stack up. Now, one downside I found, which I was quite surprised by when it comes to alcohol, it just doesn't last very long. It's just like 2 to 3 minutes most of the times. Some of the special ones, like Ballistic Bock, which I'm now chugging, this one I got from Player Vending Machine. I think that one lasts for like 5 minutes. Now we have to get this guy into range, so somehow it's a little bit bugged at the moment, and we're not dealing damage, but once he's into range, it shouldn't be too much of a problem here. The Ballistic Bock gives us 15% extra damage, in addition to costing us more condition on the weapon, but we do have Gunsmith, so we should be able to survive it. Now if I sound a little bit bored, by the way, I'm sorry, this is one of those very cursed videos where Okay, now he's into range and everything works out. One of these cursed videos where I'm basically on my 5th take already. For some reason it always crashed. The first time I did it, I just forgot to turn on my mic and therefore had no voice over my recording. And after that, I couldn't finish a single one without losing connection to my Wi-Fi or the game just casually crashing and everything. Yeah. So another thing to keep in mind on this character, maybe you have noticed already, I do have a bayonet on me and have even used it on one occasion in order to bash. Yeah, that's just because the weapon I do have here, by the way, we're going for the blowholes because that's the weak point. The weapon I do have here has a secondary effect of bashing damage, doing 50% more damage. Yeah, obviously I would have gone for something else if there would have been a better effect. I just thought because it is there and I never really show off bashing damage. Okay, just them over it. And I never really show off bashing damage. I think, yeah, this was a good situation just because, yeah, we do have a weapon that actually has the bayonet as a modification, and in addition to that, we do have a stock that boosts our bashing damage. So yeah, that combined with the bashing effect and the basher perk, there's not a lot more we could do in order to make something out of the bashing effect. As always, obviously, if you have a bashing effect minigun, that's super OP, but other than that, pretty much every single other weapon is trash for bashing. And I wanted to show that off a little bit here just because, yeah, if this weapon doesn't perform okay with bashing, then none should, to be honest, because, yeah, as I said, we do have overall 4 different perks, effects, modifications that do boost our bashing damage, and still I found myself pretty much never using it for the simple reason that it's just not going to work well. There are 2 of legendary effects, as far as I know, that do work with bashing effect, anti-armor and vampires. So vampires is a bit of a loss here just because we're not going to dish out a lot of bashes, so that's lost. Anti-armor, yeah, you could probably get a little bit more damage, but I'm very, very doubtful that this would make bashing here worth it. I just included it into the build, as I said, because I already had the effect on me, on the weapon, and it kind of fitted the weapon visually on this occasion. And yeah, it's just 2 perk points overall that we're basically losing out. In terms of a muzzle modification, unless I mean, if I wasn't using this one here, I would have used none whatsoever. So yeah, the grip is precisely the one I would use anyways, and just because it does buff our condition on the weapon. And yeah, therefore we hadn't really had any loss or convenience cost here with going with Basher, so I left it in just to show off how bad it is, in my opinion. But really, the interesting part about this video, about this build, in my opinion, is I wanted to show how effective you can be just by getting a large amount of crits. So that really is the point of the video here, because we don't have any damage buff whatsoever on our weapon. The Medic's effect doesn't add any extra damage. It just keeps us alive very well, I might add. So that's very cool, just because we do have survivability from that effect. I found that I could actually use a armor set I would otherwise not use, which is sturdy radar armor, with the exception of the left arm. Which is heavy radar armor, but in addition to that, we're not modded to get the best results. We just have the tempered modification, which is like 2nd or 3rd tier modification in terms of resistances. Because if you go hardened or buttressed, which would be the best in terms of resistances, if we would do that, the armor changes its visuals quite heavily, and I didn't want to have that on this occasion. That doggo really resisted me here. So yeah, I wanted to have this flimsy wire look. Obviously, radar armor is not for everyone. A lot of people just straight up think it's very ugly, which I kind of agree with. But I still think if you have a full set of it, it fits the wasteland rather well. and makes for a cool character in my opinion. Especially on this occasion, it works very well with the Skull Lord helmet. Um, that's the Atomic Shop version, by the way, not the one you can get from Daily Ops. I think I have that on one of my characters, but I'm not quite sure. So yeah, overall, I think the whole aesthetic worked out rather well, despite being relatively ugly. Works well with the Handmade as well, and yeah, really, I did enjoy this character a lot, just because you don't really have to think about your health all the time. You just go into a situation, start firing, and everything turns out great in most situations. Now, you're far from being unkillable, obviously. In tougher situations, you can definitely get into trouble. So, especially if your AP runs out. However, now that I am on a custom world, I just crafted my legendary armor set as I wished for it, and yeah, I did include 2 powered pieces, and now there's no problem anymore. I played for the longest while using a non-legendary armor set, just because I wanted to go with this raider stuff, and didn't have any legendary pieces here, and didn't want to just grind for a week in order to make it legendary. I just played with a non-legendary set. Turned out worked relatively fine as well. As I said, the only problem was sometimes I was running out of AP, and at that point, okay, I think we can do this with bashing. Yeah, I mean he had like 2 HP left or something, so uh, would have gone well without any modifications or legendary effects, probably, but yeah. Yeah, it turned out relatively well. The only thing was sometimes I was running out of AP, and at that point I was in trouble because it was refreshing so uh, slowly. But other than that, yeah, everything went fine. The survivability we have here really comes from our legendary effect, first and foremost. Let's just chug another wine so we can get our crits back. So getting chugging alcohol here does 2 things. It greatly improves our DPS just by giving us more crits, and in addition to that, also it greatly improves the amount of healing that we get. So yeah, overall it's really nice. There would be a simple way to just get 2 pieces of legendary armor with +1 luck, and then you would have access to permanently use it. Use crits on every second shot. I feel like we do get them at the moment. I will just double check that we don't have the blight from fighting the Scourge Beast. That's something I kind of forgot about. And no, we do have red worms, so yeah. If we had the blight, we wouldn't have enough luck. And as you can see there, sometimes you do get damaged, but just fighting enemies a little bit, we will be back to full health in no time at all. Once we're getting a lot of crits, we also can pretty much easily fight outside of our native range, which isn't too great, but yeah, since we're dealing crits, that doesn't really matter anymore. We just need to get 1 shot in, and after that we do basically get hits all of the time. Another big thing is ammo efficiency on this build is pretty okay actually. I was in fear that it would be worse. Just because, yeah, we're running an automatic weapon, not the highest damage output in the world, so I thought this could be troublesome. But we started with pretty much 1,100 shots or so, and are now down to 400. So over the course of the video, we burned through like 600-700 shots, which isn't bad at all. Now, I think everything turned out well. I think you get the point here. There's a lot of you could do in order to get more damage. Um, Basically, what you want to do is get better armor, which shouldn't be a problem, and then just get a weapon with anti-armor effect, maybe that's crits effect as well, doing more damage. And yeah, that way you could do a lot of DPS here. Would cost you a little bit of survivability, obviously, but yeah. I think it turned out well, and I hope that you enjoyed the gameplay part of the video so far, and now we're getting into the details. So let's get right into it. We're starting off with our mutations. So the important ones here are bird bones and eagle eyes for better VATS efficiency overall, more action points to use, more perception for more VATS hit chance, and better VATS crit damage. Very important here. Then we do have healing factor, which give or take. On this situation though, I felt like the downside from healing factor just didn't affect us too much because Stim packs are not a factor here. We're obviously not using them just because we do heal from doing crits. So yeah, the downside isn't really there. I mean, you could get buffs from Psycho or something like that in order to do more damage. But what I was doing is using alcohol, like Ballistic Bog. And if you really need more, what you can do is you can use the Herbivore mutation that you see down there in order to use something like Blight Soup or so on in order to get more crit damage. So that's it. The positive from healing factor means that if we survive an encounter, which should be the case in this situation, we just heal up all our health in the meantime between the next encounter and the one we just left. So yeah, it just further improves on the fact that we don't really need stim packs to heal ourselves. Then we do have the Marsupial and the Speed Demon mutation. Those two are pretty much always there just for movement. Better jump height, faster movement speed, and faster reload speed here are very beneficial. Obviously, a bit of extra carry weight doesn't hurt either. And lastly, we do have Unstable Isotope, just a leftover from another build. Same with Chameleon, but those two don't really have any downside to us. That's why they are just left in there. They don't offer anything to us as well, but yeah, I didn't really feel like I had to bother removing them. And that being said, we go over to our equipment. Here it is, the weapon, a Medic's handmade rifle with bashing damage doing 15% more damage, 50% more damage, and Vets crits filling faster. So obviously, as I said, don't bother with bashing damage. It's just there, to be honest. I would like something like better Vets hit chance, better Vets crit damage, or even explosive, faster fire rate. Basically everything that's usually good is good here as well. Nothing you desperately need. And in terms of modifications, I went with the tweaked receiver, which does the same amount of damage as the powerful automatic receiver, but also gives us a little bit more crit damage, which obviously syncs in very well with the amount of crits we're getting. Aligned long barrel for better VETS AP cost and better range. Precise grip, this was the one I mentioned earlier. Better VETS AP cost, and in addition to that, we do have a better condition bar, which really is a factor to consider with this weapon. We also have the gunsmith modification, the gunsmith perk, and the weapon tends to break very fast, so I wanted to have a few things going on in order to keep it going longer. We lost about 30% of our condition during this video here um, with all these things, so keep that in mind. Then we do have a Swift magazine. Now we could get a little bit more damage by using something that has armor penetration, like the Stinging one, for example. I went with the Swift one just for the looks here, and because we're dealing so much crits, and those have armor penetration for themselves, so we didn't really need it in my opinion. But that could get you a little bit more damage overall if you use something like penetrating or stinging. Then we do have a reflex side just for better VATS accuracy and efficiency overall. And lastly, we do have the large bayonet. As I said, to be honest, you can just leave it out and not bash and probably be better off. And lastly, we do have the Blood Eagle Paint, which I've found rather fitting on this occasion. Then we go over to our armor set. As I said, this one I crafted like I desired it on custom worlds. We do have a full set of bolstering radar armor, sturdy except for the left arm, which is heavy. And two pieces do have AP refresh. Two pieces have one endurance, and one piece has agility. So the stat boosts here are just, yeah, they turned out how they are. They're not deal breakers here. They don't make or break the build. Extra agility obviously is nice, just a few more action points. More endurance means a few more hit points, but really the interesting part here is AP refresh. Now, in terms of the first effect, bolstering, I decided for because Vanguard would be an option, obviously, just to give you a bit more resistance at full health, which for the most part you can keep. You can stay at full health oftentimes. But the thing is, when you get in trouble, you want bolstering. That's better, just because usually you get into trouble with this build if you're staggered and then have to reload maybe. So overall, you're having a little bit of a time frame where you're not shooting an enemy and therefore not get healing from your medic's effect. And you want to survive that, meaning that if you get damaged in the meantime, you get more and more resistances from the bolstering effect, making it so that by the time you are at 20% health or so, you really do have good resistances. Now, your energy resistance isn't the greatest. You could deal with that by using the grounded mutation, which would have no downside on this occasion here. So that would be a good decision, just to give you 100% extra, 100 extra energy resistance. But mainly it's the damage resistance here that we're looking for. And as I said, if we're down to like 20% health or so, we are up to something like 350 damage resistance and 250 energy resistance. So we're relatively tanky, and that should be enough to make us survive until we can start shooting again and get healing again. So yeah, that's basically it. In terms of modifications, nothing too great going on here. I do have custom fitted on the legs just to reduce my AP cost when sprinting, and the rest is ultralight here. Now I wanted to use biocom mesh on my torso piece in order to elongate the amount of, elongate the time that my alcohol lasts. However, that doesn't work, sadly, only works for chems. And same with Campfiend, for example. So as far as I'm aware, there's no way to elongate the duration of your alcohol buffs, which is a bit of a shame. However, as I said, alcohol should be pretty common. You can really get a lot of it, and yeah, that's basically it. In terms of apparel pieces, we do have the Skull Lord helmet, as I just said, shielded long johns, extra perception and agility, obviously good for our vets usage, and just one luck, which is nice and works together with all of our whole goal for this build, getting 23 luck with the addition of using one alcohol. And yeah, that's basically it. The rest isn't too interesting here. We do have the chemist's backpack. However, if you were to use this build primarily, you'd not really need it because you don't make use out of stimpaks or chems at all. So you can just go for the grocer's backpack, which would reduce the weight of alcohol and so on, which would spare us one perk, which I'm going to talk about now. So looking at the perks, we do have 4 strength, 2 bandolier. This one's kind of necessary because you're carrying in a perfect world large amounts of ballistic ammo, 5.56 ammo to be more precise. And then we do have Basher. I mean, yeah, talked about it already a lot. Absolutely unnecessary. I wouldn't really go for it. I just wanted to show it off in this video here. It can be fun, but it's never going to be the best decision. So that's just right off the bat. But you will see we do have a lot of legendary stats. So yeah, Basher is just one of those things I added with it. Then we do have Perception, which is maxed out pretty obviously. We do have all the Commando perks maxed out. Then we do have Tank Killer for better armor penetration and a slight chance to stagger. However, the armor penetration is the real deal here. And lastly, we do have rank 3 of Concentrated Fire. So one combination you often see, which would probably work better here, is rank 1 of Concentrated Fire and rank 2 of Ground Pounder, just to give us a bit more reload speed. But that's really not going to make the world of a difference, not the greatest difference at all. So I went with Concentrated Fire rank 3. It doesn't work as well as it did in the past, but still there is a difference between using rank 1 and rank 3 in how much accuracy you gain. And overall I thought, like, yeah, it wasn't a bad decision here. I didn't really need reload speed in addition to what we have already. So yeah, that's just something you have to figure out for yourself. I guess the better option would be rank 1 of Concentrated Fire and rank 2 of Ground Pounder. However, yeah, that's how I decided to go here, just for a bit more accuracy. Then we do have Endurance at 6, rather low here, but the necessary stuff is there. We do have Fireproof, which is never a bad pick unless you have a dense chest piece, which on this occasion would probably not be a bad decision. But we wanted to have at least a little bit of endurance going on, so we want to have a baseline of tankiness. So a bit of armor rating and a bit of a HP pool, just so, as I said, we can survive situations where we do get into trouble by being staggered and not being able to fire, like being staggered, reloading, and so on. So yeah, we went with Fireproof here just to make explosions basically not a factor anymore. And the other one is Adamantium Skeleton. I often use it when I'm not using a stealth build or so on, and not use power armor. On this occasion it's even more important though, because our whole premise for this build is basically avoid to use Stimpaks. And it would be a bit of a counterintuitive if we would not use stim packs in order to heal our HP and everything, but then have to use a stim pack anyways in order to heal our limbs, because that's something the Medic's effect can't do, can't heal crippled limbs. So yeah, therefore Adamantium Skeleton is a good pick here. Then we do have Charisma at 4. We use it for rank 3 of Tenderizer just because it's such a good perk. 10% multiplicative damage after the first shot here, very nice. Overall adds a lot to our DPS. And then we do have rank 1 of Happy Go Lucky, so we get 2 extra luck when under the influence of alcohol. Any alcohol will do. And as you see there, with just one more perk point, we could amplify that up to 3. So if you maybe don't have access to so much legendary luck or so, there's various versions. Usually I like to just go for legendary armor with the +1 luck, so I do have the 23 luck necessary permanently. But as I said, I wanted to switch things up a little bit and make this guy here an alcoholic with very little investment, as you can see. It's just this one perk point that we use, but you still constantly want to chuck alcohol, and I think it's kind of a nice role-playing thing to do. Um, I intended to use this as a solo build just to keep us alive. The Medic's effect doesn't have to be used for teams in order to be useful. I actually think if you want to go for a team medic build, there's better options than the Medic's effect. And yeah, one thing I didn't really mention so far is Medic's effect on a automatic commando weapon isn't exactly the greatest thing. You want to have a shotgun maybe that will deal a lot. So basically, any multi-projectile weapon will give you the best amount of healing from the medic's effect. But still, due to the amount of crits we're getting here, we still get a constant bit of healing going on. And yeah, you can obviously just use this as a team build, but yeah, I designed it as a solo build. Then we go on to Intelligence, which is at rank 5. Gunsmith, that's all we have here. As I said, I wouldn't want to run without it. Oftentimes I use Gunsmith just for convenience sake, but on this occasion it's more than convenience. I really think without Gunsmith, the weapon tended to break so often. Um, it just wasn't fun. I had to constantly repair it. So yeah, for once, Gunsmith I would really advise you to use. Going over to agility here, we do have Action Boy, which just syncs in relatively well with our powered pieces. And overall, yeah, you want to have a good bit of AP refresh going on, as always, when you have a VATS build. Then we do have Through Hiker, bit of a memeified perk. Haven't used it for a while. Now it's back just because, yeah, as I said, we wanna carry a lot of alcohol, and that stuff can weigh you down quite heavily. Um, if you have like 50 bottles of alcohol in your stash, that's like 50, or in your inventory, that's like 50 pounds. So really on this occasion, I wanted to have Through Hiker. Now, what I mentioned earlier is you could just use the Grocer's backpack, which would do the same thing here, and you have 3 perk points left, freed up, which you could then use for Adrenaline at rank 3, which would not be a bad decision. Um, I, however, decided to go with this just to not always make use of Adrenaline here. Then we do have Evasive, adding to what I was saying earlier, that we want to have a little bit of a baseline of resistances. So we want to have some base tankiness to this build. It doesn't have to be too crazy, but you can't just go in with no resistances and no HP. I mean, no HP, low HP. That's not a good decision, because that would probably make it so your healing rate is not enough to keep you alive. It's really to find the sweet spot for you. And I found that, yeah, having evasive here really helped me get to that point. As I said, it's a bit of your personal preference, how you deal with it. You can obviously just use something better in terms of armor. I wanted to have this visual, so I needed this kind of armor here. But yeah, if you have something better, you obviously don't need evasive anymore. If you can get up to like 300 resistances or so just by using better armor, do it. And yet again, you have room for stuff like adrenaline, or sorry, or dodgy even. Um, so yeah, do whatever you like here. I went with evasive just because we do have high agility and can make full use out of it. Then I went with rank 3 of Gun Fu. most of the times I just go with rank 1 here, just in order to have the gimmick of switching to another enemy after killing one. But on this occasion I went with rank 3, which, yeah, especially if you're fighting ghouls or so, you really can start one-shotting them after a few kills, so that's really nice to have. And lastly, we do have White Knight. We're constantly under fire, and yeah, we don't really want to repair our armor all the time. Now, a lot of people just swap it in once it's time to repair them to make the repair cheaper. However, I still like to leave it into the build permanently in order to also have my armor break slower. That's yet again personal preference. Then we go over to luck, probably the most important one for this build here. The important pieces here are Grim Reaper Sprint to just make it that we have a chance to refresh all our action points after killing an enemy, especially if you're going against mobs like Super Mutant, School, Scorch, and so on. That makes it so you can stay in VATS basically the whole time. Better criticals, very obviously, we try to get as much criticals as possible, so boosting their damage is very straightforward. And lastly, this one here, critical savvy, very important. This makes it so in combination with 23 luck and the VETS crits filling faster perk, we do get a crit every second shot. So after doing a crit, we are down to 45% of our crit meter, and a single shot is able to refill our complete AP crit bar. That leaves us with Class Freak and Starch Genes. Those two are, yeah. I mean, Starch Genes, you just need it in order to keep your mutations and not get any new ones. Class Freak at rank 1, pretty simple here. We just wanted to have 15 luck, or needed to have it. There's no way around it. So we are left with one odd perk point to spend. And to be honest, if you have one perk point to spend, you can't go wrong, you can't go right, really. There's nothing that will make a dramatic difference. Uh, I went with Class Freak just because it's a little bit of a help overall, reducing the debuffs from our mutations a little bit. And lastly, we do have Bloody Mass, a perk I rarely use, or not even rarely, I do use it every now and then. It's just not the most efficient perk. It's 3 perk points for what basically breaks down to like 10 damage points or so. But still, we didn't need anything else here. I was torn between using Tormentor and this one, just because crit perks are out of the table on this occasion. We also already get the maximum amount of crits, so everything else would be overkill. Um, Bloody Mass I decided for just for overall bit more damage. I could have gone for Tormentor, but I found myself killing enemies fast enough so that I don't really need to cripple them. So yeah, I went with Bloody Mass here. And that leaves us with legendary perks, which on this occasion are quite boring. It's one of those builds where I just put basically everything into legendary stats. So agility and luck, those two are already maxed out to begin with. So we have 15 luck and 15 agility just from our build. And these two just boost our passive stats. So luck, talked about it a lot. This is necessary in order to boost us up to 23 luck, in order to get our crits every second shot. Agility, this just gives us a little bit more action points to use in VATS. And the ones that we actually use in order to give us more perks are Strength, Endurance, and Perception. So not a lot to say here. And lastly, we do have Ward Rats, just doubling down on not using chems or anything in order to keep us alive. So with Ward Rats, even rank 1, we pretty much never need red away. So yeah, that's it basically. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the build, guys. Bit of a different one. I think it's a bit more grounded, to be honest. It's nothing too spectacular, too crazy, but I still found it interesting and had a lot of fun with it. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, guys, see you next time. Bye.